Call the meeting back to order. You okay
All right.
with the video and all that?
I think, Betty, are we good on video and Tammy Lynn on audio? Okay, I assume it hasn't stopped running. Okay. We need Mr. Chairman, we need a motion from the board to, apologize, to certify the following statement. To the best of the members' knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted in the motion by which the closed session was called was considered or discussed in said closed session.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Harris. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Coontz?
Aye.
Mr. Kimber?
Aye. Okay. First item on the agenda is public hearing. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board at this time? I'll open the public hearing.
No. First, we'll have Mr. Kretz present, and then we can open it on the specific matter, unless you'd like to have
Oh, I'm sorry.
just a public
I'm
comment
thinking
period.
public
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah, no apologies.
Never mind.
My apologies. Mr. Chairman, I believe the first matter on your public hearing agenda tonight is the rezoning 2022-02. Mr. Kretz, if you could, with the chairman's permission.
Sorry.
Mr. Kretz, make sure your microphone's on.
Thank you, Kevin.
I guess it's on now. Don't see it. This is rezoning case 2022-02. Of course, this is submitted by the Middlesex County Board of Supervisors pursuant to Resolution 2022-03. The request is for the zoning reclassification of approximately 15 acres to general business and approximately 2.3 acres to village community. The property for which the reclassification is being requested is currently zoned low-density rural and is located on General Polar Highway, which is US Route 17 business. It's further identified as tax parcel 26-81, and it's located in the Saluda District. Just some site specifics. The total property area you can see there is 81 acres. Their only rezoning request is about 17 roughly. The future, it's an existing vacant piece of property, and the future land use map lists this parcel for mixed use. The surrounding uses vary. On the north, the far north, it's vacant, and to the, I guess the north outside the parcel would be vacant as well. On the east, you have low-density rural and a little bit of residential. On the south, you have general business, village community with commercial, a school, and a residential. And on the west, you have LDR with a residential use. And this property is not located within the Saluda Historic District. This is the, I've got several overheads here showing how the property is to be rezoned. You can see it's 500 feet deep from the right-of-way of US Route 17, and it continues on to the western portion over to the, behind an out parcel, and it continues over to several residential lots. On the east side, you can see there's a 200-foot, I guess, drawdown, if you want to call it that, in zoning. It's going to village community, and that piece would border the existing residential district. This shows it from a little bit higher overview. Is basically the same picture. You have about 1,200 foot of frontage along General Polar and another 200 foot for village community. And that's, shows the area to be rezoned. You can see the adjoining property is directly across the street. A good portion of the property across the street is zoned general business to the southwest, and you can see that to the southeast, it's zoned village community. And to the north and east, it's, north and west rather, it's LDR. This is the future land use map. It shows that area being slated for mixed use. Area to the east is already residential, and the area to the west is residential with, you can see that commercial node just to the southwest. This is just an overhead of the property, shows part of it's in a field, most of it's wooded. A few photos of the site. I think most of us are familiar with this. We've seen it many times. You can see some of the currently zoned general business sites to the right of this picture. This is looking at it from the school, looking back down. And this is directly across. This would be the easternmost property line, roughly, showing where the rezoning would occur. In another picture. Of course, we know why we're here, approval for zoning reclassification. The future land use map designation. The Middlesex County Comprehensive Plan defines mixed use as follows. Mixed use, residential, commercial. These areas generally correspond to areas now zoned village community, VC, or where VC zoning would be appropriate. This category includes areas where residential development of a variety of housing types, densities is encouraged. Planned unit developments, clusters, developments, and neo-traditional developments are desired in these areas. Allowable future densities in these areas should be based upon the availability and the adequacy of public services and facilities and the compatibility of the proposed land use with the surrounding properties. The category also designates those areas where small-scale commercial uses are encouraged, such uses provide goods, services designed to meet the needs of the surrounding residential community. Often located at community crossroads, these smaller commercial areas should be designated to be compatible with the rural landscape. The future land use map shows sufficient areas designated mixed use to accommodate these demands. Staff feels that rezoning a portion of the property to general business and allowing the remainder to be rezoned village community, partially with this application and in the future, meets the intent of the mixed-use designated area. Comprehensive plan compliance, these goals are met. These are in your staff report. They do, this rezoning request would enhance the economic base. We would encourage an effective and sustainable commercial development pattern to achieve a balanced economy and tax base. Encourage sufficient land areas are available for commercial development to serve existing anticipated demand. And encourage the creation of an industrial base with sufficient diversity to provide employment opportunities to county residents. The zoning district purposes, this is pretty much, this correlates pretty much with the comprehensive plan. I'm not going to read that verbatim. And that is also in the staff report. For transportation, property fronts on US Route 17 business. The pavement configuration consists of 2 lanes with median turn lanes tapering to 2 lanes at the eastern portion of the property. VDOT would review any proposal for proper entrance requirements. Water service, we know there's water service available in this area. Wastewater disposal, it's currently located in the courthouse area, and the possibility exists to extend the service to this area. Adjoining properties, uses for the properties that adjoin the property vary. Properties to the east and west are primarily residential and commercial. Residential uses to the south and Middlesex High School to the southeast. Environmental, all development shall conform to all required laws and regulations, included but not limited to Article 4A Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, Erosion Sediment Control Ordinance, stormwater regulations. No RPA buffers are evident on this property that's being rezoned. I'm just going to flash through these if we have to come back to them. These are the permitted uses for village community. All these uses would be allowed in the village community portion. And these are the general business uses. I'm not going to go through them verbatim, but if we have to come back to them, we can. And you can see solar facility, that's been, those scale have been removed for that, so. All right, conditions, the resolution is drafted and adopted allows for necessary conditions to be a part of any rezoning application. Staff recommends the following be added as a condition of approval. This is just a staff suggestion. The board can take whatever action they need. This particular component was agreed upon by the applicant, the property owner. We're the applicant, but the property owner and staff, they're amenable to this one condition. They have not agreed to other restrictions on the property. I want to remind the board of that.
Dave, I got a quick question. So the property owner proffered that they agreed with the vegetated buffer?
They concur with that
Okay,
through our discussions.
all right.
So this would be a recommended condition. Like I said, the board can institute it or not in the event that they decide to approve the application. A 50-foot vegetated buffer located along the western edge of the area to be rezoned to general business along the common boundary property line with tax parcels 26-79 and 26-12-10, along the eastern edge of the area to be zoned village community, and along the common property line with tax parcel 26B-9-6 shall be installed at the time of development of the property. In the event that the adjoining property is rezoned to a zoning district that is the same as the adjoining rezoned area, the buffers may be eliminated. Buffer content shall be determined by the planning commission at the time of site plan approval. The buffer proposed in the residential community, the village community portion may be eliminated if used for residential purposes. So I'm just going to skip back to our little picture for a second and show those areas. Let me get a little bit closer. The only portion, and I hope this, good, the only portions that would be encumbered with any type of buffer would be this portion to the far west and this portion to the far east. I've spoken with Mr. Thomas. We both agree a buffer is not necessary to buffer himself, so that's not part of this proposal. So he's essentially agreed to these two buffers, and that's all that he's really, we've never discussed any use restrictions, nor we've placed any in this application.
Matt, can you highlight where he's talking about for those?
Yeah, you might be able to
Just so-
highlight, I'm sorry. Oops, sorry, Matt. It went away, hit the wrong button. So right here and right there. So those would be the only buffers proposed. And those are only at the time of development. Mr. Thomas would not be responsible for creating them at this time because there's no development there. So, and the developer would be responsible for that. So with that, conclude my presentation. Let me go back down. So in conclusion, staff recommends approval of this application. If the board should so decide to add the buffers, they would be conditioned as specified in the staff report. At this time, I can answer any questions the board may have. If not, I'll turn it over to the chair for public hearing.
Any questions? Okay. So now, I'll open the floor for public comment on this proposal. Would anyone like to?
I do have
you
one public comment card from Claudia Suchek from Harmony Village. Oh, I have
Good
two.
evening,
Hi, Claudia.
Mr. Chairman, board members. Before my remarks, I want to say thank you for supporting the JRTC program. We're really excited for the opportunities they're going to bring for our students. Thank you. I'm here to reiterate the comments that I made at the Planning Commission when they considered this adoption. I'm expressing not an opposition to the rezoning application before you, but what we believe to be a responsible concern for the character of the businesses that may be established there due to the rezoning. Not to demean a business in any manner, but to say that there are businesses that would not be suitable operating across from our high school. For instance, any shop that would specialize in the sale of alcohol, firearms, or tobacco. I implore the board with all due diligence to restrict this type of business from locating in this new business zone in order to exercise responsible guardianship of our precious children. With infrastructure development, the presumption in our county will become, the presumption is that our county will become a desirable location for growth. Why not? It's God's country, right? We must exemplify concern for our youth by restricting unsuitable businesses around our schools. If not, those who explore the possible relocation may find that our county is not the place that they want to be. If I, as a parent, were considering MHS for my children and located across the street were a vape shop or a gun shop, I would look elsewhere because it would indicate to me that our community doesn't care. I have done some research, particularly with Henrico County, and they replied to me with some things that they do in rezoning, and I have some of that information if the board would like to have copies of it for your edification. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one other public speaker card with M.V. Putney Jr. from Saluda.
Tammy.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is, for the record, M.V. Putney Jr. Everybody knows me as Tammy. I've lived in this county all my life, right through those woods. I was born and raised, born in Richmond, but I lived there all my life. I'm excited to see that we're moving, and being the county is moving into a positive direction on getting some relief, especially for taxpayers, myself, and getting businesses in here. So I applaud you for that. So with that being said, I am excited for the project. I would like to see it move forward. I think it's a good area for it. You've already have commercial properties up there now. It is right off the mainstream, so it should be good for the traffic going through, and they may decide that they want to stop and take a little bit look a little bit around. So again, I'm excited, and thank you for your opportunity to let me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Putney.
That's all I have.
No one else? Would anybody else like to address the board about this? Close the public hearing. And
I believe the applicant's present. Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate if the applicant wishes to come forward. They don't have to, but they're allowed a time to speak as well, in addition.
great, okay. No,
Property owner, my apologies, not the applicant, the property owner.
property owner,
That's good.
no desire? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've got just a couple of comments that I think that could handle some of the concerns that the school board chair, Ms. Claudia Sochek, has brought to our consideration. When I first took over as planning director back in 2007, 2008, they all blur together, the county had worked off and on an adult-oriented businesses ordinance as part of the zoning, some offset of that, where it addressed all of the adult-oriented type businesses. It never came to fruition. In fact, I don't think I spent one ordinance committee meeting working on it as planning director because other things crowded it out, specifically the development of the comprehensive plan. But that may be an opportunity for us to address not only schools' concerns, because we have other schools in other areas of the county, but other more protected type of assets where you'd want to restrict certain types of adult-oriented businesses from proximity. Not necessarily by zoning district, but by proximity, distance. And it's a acceptable use of the planning power of the county to do so. What I would recommend to the board is that we consider resurrecting some of that work, and maybe putting that in front of the ordinance committee and get a recommended ordinance in front of the board at some time in the near future.
Can I ask a question of Matt?
Of course.
In your experience, Matt, how did you go so far, or do you recall how they defined adult businesses? Was it as simple as vape, alcohol, firearms, or were there other?
The ordinance the county had worked on, I think, in 2005, 2004, in that time frame was specifically sexually oriented businesses. But I think, yeah, and I think you can broaden the term to include other more adult-oriented type things like ABC stores, vape shops, tobacco shops, things of that nature.
And is this something that you've seen other counties in Virginia do? Would we be setting a precedent, or is this pretty normal?
I'm going to segue to our planning director,
you.
who may know more about it now and more updated information on the whole subject. Because I just dated myself 15 years. Here you go, Dave. There's your softball across home
I
plate.
will add that we do, I believe this is still, we do have an adult section in our ordinance. Any fears that there would be any adult uses are generally correlated with pornographic type uses. And we have a fairly restrictive component in one of our articles that deals with an adult use. The only district that would permit it would be light industrial. It has to be a tremendous distance from any type of residence. I'm not sure that you could even make it happen. So there's about 2 or 3 pages in our ordinance about restriction of adult uses. So they couldn't put any type of store that sold adult novelties or any of those things, undesirable type things, so.
And if my memory serves, Spotsylvania, Stafford County, some of the Northern Virginia counties, most all of the counties around Richmond have something along those lines. They may not call it adult-oriented businesses. They may call it sexually oriented businesses, different things. And how do you define it and what you define, I think, is largely left up to the community, as long as you don't go too extreme. Yeah.
So that, there is something in place that would restrict that use. If there's any fears about that, that certainly would be taken off the plate, so to speak. But some of the other uses mentioned, those are usually associated with retail sales, general retail sales, cigarettes or vape products. Dollar General sells them, I believe. So does Sunnyside. Food Lion, they sell a lot of these products. So, as they do alcohol, any convenience store would sell those products as well.
Can you just address the other adjacent properties that are in the vicinity of the school, and are there any restrictions on their?
Well, I've noted in the planning commission meeting that if we were to restrict this property, theoretically restrict the property to the north that we're considering rezoning, the property to the west of the school is currently zoned village community. So let's say, for instance, we put restrictions on there against vape products. Somebody comes in, they say, I want to put one there. Well, I'm sorry, there's a restriction. And they say, well, what about the property across the street? It's for sale next to the school. I said, well, you can do it there because there's no restrictions on that. That property's own village community. They could put a small retail store in there that sold vape products, beer, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever. So it kind of goes back to what Matt was saying. If we want to try to capture this, it's hard to capture it in this application. It would have to be looked at holistically through an ordinance review, and how does the board, you start getting into separation. What is the separation? Do you want it 200 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet? So there's a lot of conversation that goes into it that expands much greater than we can discuss tonight. It's a very complicated issue, so.
And defining adult-oriented could be defined as simply piggybacking on Virginia code, saying you have to be, what, 18, 21 now to buy cigarettes?
Well, all those products, you have to be on vape
Yeah,
products,
so they're
cigarettes.
essentially adult products.
They
So
are adult
there you are.
products, yeah, adult-oriented products.
And I think the only other thing I would add to the discussion, and Dave, through the Planners Association, can find out volumes on this, your restrictions have to be reasonable and serve a valid public purpose. Like, you couldn't say, we don't want a sexually oriented business within 13 miles of a school. It's not reasonable. It needs to be reasonable. What does that mean? Well, you look at what other counties have done and have been upheld in court. There's your reasonable. You're always safer in the group than as an outlier. So I just wanted to volunteer that.
Any other questions? Me? While you have me?
Other questions?
Mr. Kretz, just tell me, because from the property, we're looking at rezoning. Am I looking at it correctly, that Tractor Supply would be somewhere closer to the north end of that property?
I don't know that we have an application for that.
Yeah, we don't have that before you, so
I don't have any
know that you
information on
could,
that,
you could
no.
give a, that's a difficult question to answer. I'm
That's
sorry,
a-
Mr.
yes,
Harris,
it
because
is.
it's not before us. It hasn't been presented
Not
to
a problem.
planning.
Then how about answer this? From where the school building is, how does that line up with the property we're looking at a rezone?
Let me see, hold on. I think I have an area. This may help. This has helped some. So the portion that's being zoned village community is directly across the street from the western entrance to the school. I
Okay.
believe, if I'm
Okay.
looking at that correctly. So,
The yellow,
Yes.
yeah, the
orange is
yellow
right across
color
from
would be the,
school.
would- yes,
Okay.
sir, would be the portion to village community. The portion from there west would be general business.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Why is it that we're bifurcating into general business and village community? Would this all be simpler if it was all general business, or what precipitated us deciding we want the section that's pink and the section that's
The
gold?
transition,
Yeah,
due to the close proximity to
Okay.
those residential,
Yep.
that's a residential district,
Yep.
and it's currently used as residential. So,
Yep.
so you want to draw down on that district if you
okay.
can.
So
It's a
that's not something you really would be looking to flex. If you're going to do this, you would do it this way. And the question really is because of public comments or our own ideas about what products shouldn't be sold near a school potentially, we're having to consider what actions we might take to maybe address that. I hear us getting a little sidelined with the sexual aspect of it, when in fact I think the comment was about guns, smoke, tobacco, drugs, and what am I missing? Alcohol.
age restricted.
Age restricted in general. So I guess what I'm wondering, is there anything about being a school that gives you a buffer in the area around, or does it not bleed over in your world, in your line of work?
Not to my knowledge.
So there's nothing that just says, hey, you're within a mile or half a mile. So, I mean, to me, it seems like if this board agrees with the public comment or has the same concern and wants to address it, we kind of need options as to what can we do if we wanted to do something, or we simply need to move forward with this and have that on sort of the agenda for, is that something we should be looking at more largely and broadly, what Matt was doing 12 years ago, like we may need to bring that back and revisit that, but I don't know that one precludes the other necessarily.
It's hard to focus on those things through this lens. It's not, it's hard to filter that out. Like Matt said, you can look at it holistically, where do you want these uses around your school? You're not, that would be the way to look at it, rather than trying to filter something on this school. Because what would preclude somebody from doing it to one of our other schools, if it's permitted? So, you want to protect it holistically, not
Yeah.
just.
Said another way, Dave, you're saying, we could fix it for this set of parcels with some sort of arrangement, but the reality is if you have that concern for that proximity to the schools, we have other schools, so you really haven't solved the problem holistically if you just try to attach something to these parcels.
Correct,
Right,
correct.
okay.
You just, yeah, so.
It's my impression also that solving a designated area for designated businesses could be fraught with lots of gray area. What percentage of your revenue is from this versus that, and does it change? And, it seems like a rabbit hole.
It can get complicated because some of your prime outlets, retail stores sell some of these products, not,
And that's an unreasonable standard. I think it would be found, and probably has been, that if you make a sweeping change throughout an entire zoning district, you've just thrown into non-conformance a lot of existing companies that are conforming. The way you address it is through proximity, not zone.
That
Just
sounds like
to-
something worth
Right.
putting on the agenda.
So,
could have the planning
just so I
commission
understand,
look
you're
at it.
saying like address it by having an ordinance that is proximity to school, for instance, and it is banning, or not banning, but saying this is not a permitted business within proximity as
Yeah.
opposed to by zoning type.
Yeah,
Okay.
and-
Yeah, I agree with you, Lud.
and, this would be something staff would do before we even got to send it to planning commission. Because we have to research a lot of ordinances. So that's, work just in-house before we send it out to ordinance committee to try to articulate any type of language out of it. So you would basically look at other ordinances and see what they have, which a lot of them do. I've seen other ordinances that have a similar adult use language as ours. And it's not uncommon, so to try to restrict certain uses like that.
Any other questions, comments for Dave?
Well, I realize that, I understand why they did the village community, because you didn't want a business right across there. And right now, the landowners, he's just using it for overflow parking. So, if you got good neighbors gonna kind of look out for things. And just speculatively, think about it. If a Wawa or a Sheetz want to go there, and you're gonna say, hey, you can't sell beer, you can't sell cigarettes, when you got Dollar and General right across the road selling all that, you got Food Line selling that, and you can walk right down to Sunnyside and get that. So, I think, those are things you can't just dictate and say, nah, you can't do that. I think really the landowner is the one that you really need to talk to, and he's the owner of the land, so he can dictate to what he wants there and not there. And I know what we know is going to come in the future, that's going to be there. So, I'm not going to say that, but we know, because we know, put it that way. But anyway, it's just being good neighbors, and, we can look at things in the future. But, right now, I don't want to hold this up because of a few things that we trying to make perfect. I think if you got some business that are going to go there, they're going to be very sensitive to young people coming in there because they know they're not far from the school. So, you got to do a little common sense on things. And they don't want to lose their licensing or anything if they get a young person in there. So, I think it's all more about education. And then, like you're saying, we can work on other areas in the county where, you can have certain, areas that you don't want so close to the school. But right now, I don't want to hold this up to get economic development in Middlesex County. And we don't, right now, I think that's the way we want to do, get some more economic development in here so, water and sewer can proceed across the road. Because that's set in our plan. And that's all I have to say right now.
And I don't want to speak for the property owner, but he's hesitant to come forward and speak. He's a little shy to come forward and speak, but he's indicated that he doesn't want any uses in this area that are not good uses. You know, he doesn't want to do that either. So he wants, you know, it's his community, it's his property in the back. He doesn't want to degrade it by putting a bad use in the front or something like that. So he wants to be selective as to what goes on his property. So I don't generally like speaking for that person, but I'm sure he would agree with it. I've got a nod, so. So,
Good neighbor, I want to be good to everybody.
yeah, so,
We appreciate that.
yeah.
That's the best way to handle it.
Yeah.
Yes, no doubt.
Any other questions for me?
So I'll entertain a motion
Yes, sir. I'll step aside.
for rezoning number 2022-02.
I make the motion that we had a rezoning of 2022-02, change from low-density rural to general business and village community,
Second?
As recommended by staff.
as recommended by staff.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Coons. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye. Thank you. Next, we have the Middlesex County Pump and Hall Sewage Disposal Ordinance. And we have someone who will address this with us. Mark?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick housekeeping, just to let you know, the ordinance is a supplemental. It's been handed to you, I believe, with one of your other pieces of paper on the desk there. So that we have Mark's staff report, but you also have that as well. Sorry,
Okay.
Mark. All
Yeah,
yours.
we all got a copy of that.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Good evening. I am here again. I think we had our advertisement for the pump and all ordinance, so it's a briefly go over again that we've had some members, businesses want to be put on pump and haul. It seems that some of the systems they have are failing, and in order for them to continue to operate, they want to be placed on this pump and haul. We don't have an ordinance set up, so Heather and I have got together and created an ordinance, drafted that, and that's what we're here to present and go over. And also discussing that with that ordinance, there is an agreement that will be signed off by the business or property owner to make sure that they maintain and keep pumping that system as needed. So there will be a procedure when we go through to actually get this done. So each person will have to have an application from the health department showing that there is an issue with their system, that they can't go and fix it, it costs too much. And from there, they will have to apply with us, and we will bring that to you all, or I will present it to you all as a member that wants to be placed on this list. And from there, they're going to have to provide from the ordinance that we drafted, that application from the health department, the signed agreement with the contractor, and also present it to you all. We want from the contractor who's pumping it actually to be certified through the health department. They have a procedure where they have to be certified through DPOR. This is going back to health department stuff, but they have to be certified through DPOR to be pumping and hauling and disposing of properly. So we want to make sure whoever's on a pump and haul and who does get the agreement, that they're getting someone who's certified to be going out there doing this work and disposing of that sewage properly. And from there, what we have addressed in the ordinance that we want to make sure is really expressed to the people applying is that we want at least 2 months, I believe, of a bond put up, a minimum of 2 months of a bond, which the details on working that out would be when they have a contractor pumping, we want to know what the cost is going to be for that contractor pump the one time, and that's what we're going to keep going for the 2 months. So if they ever default on doing it, we have that set aside as a bond, preferably, we just left it as a bond, so surety, cash bond, whatever they put up, that we have a right, no different than we would do with our E&S, that if someone fails to do what we inspect, if they don't put a silt fence, we can take that bond and use that money. The conditions we're setting up with this pumping haul is that if they don't hold to their bond and their agreement, that we would remove them from the pump and haul and contact the health department to let them know that they are now back with them and have to get a sufficient system. Because we don't want to be in the business of pumping and hauling. But we want to do this to help business owners get on the pump and haul for future public sewer to come through. So some of these are marinas that are on the waterfront that do not have great systems, that are failing, and Some of them have restaurants, so there's an overload of that going into it. So we want to get them, and they're on the route, I believe, for the plan to get sewer. So the agreement is that when we do it, it'll be a 2-year timeframe where we'll keep on pumping hall, and then we'll review it then. But if a sewer line comes through and it's a public service, it's an operation, they are required, per that agreement, to also hook up and get onto that system. From the staff report, there is one thing added to it that I wanted to make note of. I've gotten a few phone calls since we've advertised this about new construction. And the way we drafted this ordinance is existing facilities. I don't know if we want to get into the habit of looking at new structures, but the way the ordinance is written up is existing facilities only. So I know it comes up.
Did I hit the whack-a-mole first?
Right, well, I was just going to say on touching on that, because we do know new construction is a concern, but first off, this is based on administrative code requirements with the health department, and it says existing structures. But number two, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but if I'm building a new home, I have to get a building permit, I have to get my permit from the health department in order to do my, right? And so if you can't build the home without those key permits, you don't get to move forward unless sewer's there provided. So that's the other side of it, is that, it's a public policy thing. You don't allow new residential homes to be built that do not have the ability to properly dispose of their human waste, right? Like, that's not a good plan unless we're gonna enact things that Virginia law doesn't currently allow you to do with green measures and things like that. So that's just the clarification, though. It's based on administrative code.
I believe it's state code. I'd have to ask the building
Yeah.
official, but I think it's stating, when I was with the health department, we looked at it as, you must provide adequate sewage and well
Yeah.
for any new construction. So I believe it's in the building code.
Yeah,
So-
it's in multiple areas.
So-
It's not just us at the county
We-
saying, hey, we're not supporting.
Yeah, and in interest of full disclosure to the board, we've already had one of our local engineers ask the question, can my client go on pump and haul? And to add a caveat on that type of a situation where you have a business, a residence, or whatever, fill in the blank, that wants to build on an otherwise unbuildable lot, which there is no such thing as an unbuildable lot. You can perk a parking lot if you have enough money. That's just reality. If a circumstance came up where the county had committed and was in the process of deploying sewer to a certain area, for instance, the county's approved the bid and is moving forward with HRSD operating a sewer system in Cook's Corner, then and only then would you likely get a recommendation from staff to allow somebody to go on a pump and haul scenario temporarily, waiting for the sewer lines to actually be constructed. And that's a tall standard to have, because you can't plan on putting sewer. You actually got to be in the process of doing it. And that would be a convenience to the property owner not to put in a drain field they're going to use for 6 months or a year. Something along that line. You could probably have a little flexibility there. But I think those cases are going to be few and far between. And we'll react accordingly as we get them, if we get them. That's all I had, caveating on what Heather said.
That's about sums it up from our discussion last month. It's an ordinance, we've put it together. Hopefully, we've gotten all the things crossed off that we need. I will comment that I sent it to some of the supervisors of the health department, and they seem to not have any issues with what we're doing. And really, the health department turns it over to the locality to operate that program. So the health department, our local one, does not operate a permanent pump and haul. They only operate a temporary pump and haul. And their temporary pump and haul, from knowledge of being there, is similar to what we're looking at with bonds and, you got to pump out and all that, and they can shut down facilities. So we're going to work with them on any of the issues with marinas and restaurants and stuff. So their first step would be contacting and having a sign off. So, for example, one of the ones that I did when I was with the health department was they had to disconnect from their drain field and cap it off, put an alarm, and that alarm had to go off to allow them to know that they needed to pump. With our ordinance, we're going to have that in there as part of our ordinance, but we're going to make sure the health department gives them a permit to put that in. And also, there will be a secondary alarm that alerts an alarm company to alert us that, hey, they need to pump it, so that if it pops up, we're gonna immediately say, hey, your alarm's going off, do you know it? And, oh yeah, we're getting on it, we got someone come out, so we're on top of it, so. But I'm here for any questions, anything you need to know, and we'll go from there.
Sounds like it's well covered. Any questions for Mark? Any discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion that we,
But no, first we're going to do a public hearing.
oh, sorry.
Public hearing, that's okay.
She was waiting on public hearing things straight. She's like a panther. Just waiting to do it. Jump on.
I was like, okay, Letta, we're going to get the tongues.
I still need you. She's like,
I know, I'm like, no. Sorry, so yeah, we'll do a public comment.
Eleanor reflex.
all right, I'm going to open the floor for a public hearing on this matter. The floor is open. Do we have anybody who would like to speak? Anyone in the audience care to address the board about this?
I did not have any public comment cards.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Now can I ask? Yes. Okay. I will entertain a motion for the Middlesex County Pump and Haul Sewage Disposal Ordinance as presented.
I move that we adopt.
Second it.
Motion by Mr. Kuntz, second by Mr. Jesse. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. And I do have a couple things we need to talk about after this, so don't run out.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Sorry.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Couple of quick things I have here. One is what I heard was a consensus to ask Matt to look into the idea of a proximity-based control about types of business. So
Matt or Dave.
Or
Yeah.
Dave. Is everybody in favor of that? Okay, great. The other thing is, Betty mentioned to me something that we should address. The airport construction is probably going to shut down access to the airport for somewhere between 1 and maybe 3 months. We have renters that are renting hangars, and they will be unable to use their airplanes from our hangars during that period of time. So the question is whether we should suspend their rent during that period when they have really no availability to use their hangar. They either can't use it because they had to take their plane away if they want to use it, so they got to rent somewhere else, or they can't use their airplane.
For what it's worth, I'm of the mind that we're going well out of our way to make a better airport for the people that use it. And if they need to be inconvenienced for 3 months by not accessing their plane, enjoy the new runway. We're under construction.
Other comments?
Would we entertain, I don't know what the amount is for the rental.
A total for 1 month of all 10 hangars is $3,450.
For all 4 of them?
10.
For 10?
We have 10 hangars.
Maybe we just tell them we won't raise it this year.
We have never raised it.
Oh, that's another point. I mean, I'm just saying, they're getting a deal, and there's not like 7 airports that they can go to. I don't think we need to go out of our way, and I'll say it on the public record. I mean, we're expanding their airport. They should be excited and be part of the project. And if they choose to go elsewhere, then they can call me, and I'll help them find another airport.
Betty, what's your opinion? I know, well, you're on the committee.
No, I'm not.
Aren't you on the airport committee?
No. No.
I got
Reggie's on the
something.
committee.
Reggie, what you got,
Don,
man?
I got something. You've been sitting back. Look, some of them probably don't move their airplanes at all, so they use it as a storage. Let them make a complaint. The ones that complain, you reimburse them. There's no use reimbursing them. If some of them using that as a storage, you're not taking plans out.
Okay.
You know, so if they come and make a complaint, you say you reimburse them at the end of the 3 months. And that way you don't have to worry.
Yeah, I beat Heather to this one. I whacked them all first. The way we would do that is ask them to put that in writing, and we'd have to come back before you, unless y'all just grant us the authority. And we have done that in the past where somebody wants a building fee or what have you, we just have them put a paragraph in writing, we'll bring it back to your attention. But,
I was asked, and so I said, I did not.
Ask and you
I
shall
didn't
receive
know-
an answer.
Did not know what the board's pleasure of that would be, so.
Well, I don't know what my pleasure is on it either. However, my original thought was maybe, you know, you gave them a 25% cut on the rate for whatever that length of time was. But I'll yield to the power in the room.
I think the request idea is probably a good one. If I was just planning on leaving my plane there anyway because I wasn't going to use it, it's not really fair to ask for. But if I really wanted access, then come back and request it.
I think staff has got adequate direction on the matter.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks, everybody, for a very good meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Although I'm sorry I confused it several times, so I'll try and do better.
Motion to adjourn?
Second it.
Roll call?
Any discussion? Motion by Mr. Coons, second by Mr. Jesse. All in favor? All right, you got a roll call.
I know, we can do all in favor if you
Okay,
want.
all in favor?